see. I got some questions here. All right. So this one's a big spoiler because it's literally, I think, like the second to last issue of Lost Light.
Okay.
I want to know, maybe you can't answer this. What happened to Grimlock and the Decepticon baby? Because we never see them again.
I'm laughing because you've got these people listening in thinking, okay, well, maybe I'll learn something about the writing process. And then we've got a hyper specific continuity question.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the baby was, Connie, the baby,
Uh,
Connie,
oh,
yeah.
that's adorable.
I think there's a throwaway line in the last issue, and they're going to take it, I think, to the curator. They're taking it back to the curator to look after. And so, yeah, I don't know. I don't know whether the scavengers ended up being kind of adoptive parents for it, but yeah, there's a little throwaway reference. I'm sure Grimlock's kind of like a de facto uncle or something for Connie. I'm sure.
I really liked, I guess I really liked Grimlock never actually like reunites with the other Dinobots for the whole rest of the series after Maximum Dinobots. It was just
Yeah,
such a weird, like possibly editorial oversight, maybe just a bunch of different people writing it. Nobody ever thought, let's put them back together, or maybe it was just a conscious choice. But I liked the almost, I guess, purposeful defiance of what you would expect.
yeah. It was. I think maybe by the time Lost Light was coming to an end and its sister title was coming to an end, the whole IDW continuity was coming to an end, and there was a mass reboot. So as we approached those last stories, we knew it was being wrapped up. Had things carried on, had John Barber and myself, moved away, and the continuity had rolled on, then probably inevitably there would have been a Dinobot reunion. But as it is, we got to yeah, I was conscious of that at the time, actually, because I was actually preempting. I was anticipating people saying, "Oh, I don't like that Grimlock's decided to stick with the scavengers. His bond with the Dinobots is so great. Surely he'd seek them out, or vice versa." But I didn't see that. Maybe it was said, but I didn't see it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think, as I said, I think we benefited from. Well, actually, generally, there wasn't much editorial interference. I think there was some. It's a toy title, and it's got to. Well, actually, I was going to say it's got to sell toys. The IDW toy titles never really had that purpose. Not like the '80s when the comic was designed to sell toys. But that said, there would be kind of promotions. Hasbro. I think the Dark Cybertron was to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Transformers, and the 12 issues, actually, I think 16 issues in the end, were going to be in the toy boxes. They were going to be boxed with the toys themselves.
I
And so there
remember
was
that.
yeah. And so for that run, there was certain, character X needed to be in a certain issue. But outside of that, there wasn't much sort of pressure. Having said that, I'm now remembering that there were things like Combiner Wars, which was I don't know how you're a toy guy, yeah, of Transformers. And
Yeah,
then
I have some. I was always more of comics and shows,
okay,
and movies.
fair dues. So yeah, so there was some in the 2010s. There were various kind of Transformers sublines, and John Barber was more than me tended to write stories that kind of reference that. I think he kind of took one for the team there because more than meets the eye, the story it's telling is more kind of detached from the rest of the Transformers universe. So they're off doing their own thing. Anyway, I'm scampering off in a different direction. But you asked me about the Dinobots. There you go.
Excellent. I love it. We love tangents here.
Well, yeah, I heart
That
tangent.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty much all the writing advice stuff I
Mm,
wanted to ask. I would like to move more into asking just, I guess we already have, into some more Transformers specific
sure.
nerdy type stuff, getting your opinions on things. So, if you're listening for the writing advice, I hope you enjoyed it. Please continue by all means. At this point, I don't think spoilers, it's a couple years old. If you
Yeah.
want to go in no spoilers, you can track down the issues and do it, but I often enjoy reading something after being spoiled to know if I like it.
Yes.
So,
Good point. Good point.
yeah, it depends, but so feel free to stick around, and later at the end we'll have a little bit where we talk about what, well, I guess we can just do it now.
Yeah.
James, what are you working on now? What's coming up in the future? Anything you're excited about?
Well, so I feel this is kind of like a shocking reveal in the context of this podcast. But so I've always been a writer alongside other things. So I've always, it's always been something I've done around my function, my occupation. So the day job, if you like, is running a charitable foundation. So that takes up my time. And in one sense, I'm lucky because it means, that's how I survive. That's how I earn money. And comic work, I can pick up and put down. Even if I'd love to be writing comics all the time, it's a sort of has to take a kind of second place to the day job. So what I've been doing is, I mentioned them earlier on. Actually, I've been putting out sort of more than meets the eye adjacent material. So last year and again this year, I've published the More Than Meets the Eye Diaries, which is 100% about process. So it is kind of behind the scenes. I didn't, at the time, I was churning out these notebooks and capturing all my ideas and then refining them and reorganizing them, because that's my approach. That's how I write. And I didn't have in mind that in the years to come, they would be a good, well, to my mind anyway, they would be a good kind of source of material. People would be interested in knowing, where these things came from. So volumes 1 and 2 cover season 1. That's issues 1 to 21, 22 even. And then volumes 3 and 4, which came out a few months ago, they cover season 2. So that takes us from After Dark Cybertron through to the end of More Than Meets the Eye, the comic. Next year, volumes 5 and 6, the last 2, will cover the Lost Light era. So that's kind of season 3, issues 1 to 25 of Lost Light. So they're doing their own thing. But I did a bit of work for a computer games company, bit of world building work a couple of years ago, but I don't really, nothing similar on the horizon. I am working on now a book which looks at Transformers fanzines and the fall and rise of fandom in the 90s. Because now, see, I know, because before we started this recording, we were talking about how you got into the comics, and so I've got a rough idea of your age, and you're a tiny little child. You're like 7 years old. I don't know what it is relative to me, old and wizened. So I was there at the start, and I was there when Transformers seemed utterly dead. The American comic was cancelled, the toy line was cancelled in America, the British comic came to an end. And your older listeners will know, your younger listeners may not, but there was a time that when a toy line or a comic or a franchise ended, that was the end, with the exception possibly only of Star Wars and Star Trek, and Doctor Who, actually. Outside of that, it's gone. So when Transformers started to decelerate and enter into kind of like that show morbid symptoms, we all thought as fans, well, that's it. And actually, that's why we set up a fan club and started writing fanfic and started doing fanzines, because it was ours now. If we wanted to continue enjoying this, then we had to become the creators. So this book, which will be out in the summer, it's kind of like a coffee table photo reference guide to fanzines of the 90s, because fanzines are my big other obsession. But
awesome.
Thank you. But it also takes a kind of forensic look at the decline of the brand, and then through G2 was a full start, but then through Beast Wars and Beast Machines, how it climbed up again. So that's my next project. That's non-fiction. Then beyond that, I keep speaking to my collaborators, Nick Roach or Jack Lawrence. We from time to time we talk about we should do something again. We should do a create our own thing. So that's still, it's distant, it's half formed, but that's the plan. I haven't turned my back on comics. I want to do something again.
That is wonderful. Everybody should buy that book when it comes out. I'm gonna buy that. I would have bought the Lost Light More Than Meets the Eye notebooks, but I spent all my money that summer. Stormlight Archive miniatures.
Oh well, I mean, how I've heard that excuse many times. Fair enough.
Yeah, I was like, that's the oldest excuse in the book.
Exactly. Yeah, come up with something new, please. Goodness
Yes.
me.
I think I have a recommendation for you based on all the stuff you've said you liked. You ever
Yeah.
read Mortal Engines?
Well, actually, I have the first one anyway, which has got one of the all-time great opening sentences, hasn't it?
Yeah, it was a dark and blustery day, and the city of London was chasing a small mining town.
Yeah. I mean,
Goodness, those are so good.
you just need to just pour yourself a drink after you've written that one. Take the day off after you've written that. Wow. Yes. Good call. You guessed correctly. That's a good, yeah. I mean, and I've got 2 kids, 2 boys, and that's a great way of learning about new stuff. How I came across Mortal Engines was reading that to one of my sons. So
lovely.
yeah. Good book.
Yeah,
Good book.
that's really good. And there's three others in that series.
Yes.
There's an anthology, and then there's a prequel that's 3 books.
Has it been made into a? It must be. Is it in development hell or something? They're making a TV show of it or something, or a film?
I wish they would. They made a movie,
Yeah. Oh, that's it. Right.
2018. It was horrible. It was a
Well,
horrible, horrible movie.
well, as you could tell from my hesitancy, I'm sure I was thinking to myself, I'm sure they made a movie, but I have no recollection of it at all. It didn't register at all in
Yeah,
my
nobody should
consciousness.
watch it. You should just go read the
Right.
books and
Yeah.
pretend that they made a good movie.
It'll come like we said earlier. These days IP's never allowed to die. They'll find
Yeah.
another one. They'll give it another go.
Yeah, but I gotta recommend that to everyone listening. It's
Yeah.
really good. And I feel like if you like More Than Meets the Eye, you'll like this.
Yeah.
What about you think you'll ever do any let me see. You think you'll ever do any other Transformers work?
Yeah. I mean, I'd never say never. I think Lost Light came to an end more or less at the right time. I mean, I'd always planned to, if I had my way, it would have been 100 issues. There would have been a fourth and final season, 100 issues altogether. So we got to about 80. If you count the two series together, we're talking about issue 80, mid 80s or something. So yeah, one more season to take us to 100 would have wrapped it up. But that said, there was only a few things that I had to drop to wrap it up early. So it's probably coming to an end more or less at the right time. I've always said I'm not one of those people that's kind of I've turned my back on it, and I've I still love Transformers, but I would only come back if I felt really confident about the story that I had to tell. I'd need to be, which I guess on one level is obvious, but I've seen it happen with other people, not in Transformers, but that you end up just going through the motions. They're just it's diminishing returns, and I never want that to happen with Transformers. So yeah, if an idea grabbed me and I thought, God, this has got legs, then I'd probably pitch it to Skybound. Yeah, and they'd say, who are you and why are you? We don't accept solicitations. Goodbye.
Yeah, I would like to think they would know, what series you did since they're writing it now, but I guess you can hardly be expected to know every comic series and writer that your
Well, yeah, we've got
35-year-old
But this is it.
franchise.
Yeah, this is it. A lot of content.
Yeah, let's see. This is big spoilers. This is the end of More Than Meets the Eye, but they end up doing the super jump thing and splitting themselves to do like they send a version of themselves into another universe.
Yep.
And quite likely they've done that several times since, I might imagine. Just, what has one possible version of them gotten up to in your mind?
Well, there was I said earlier that IDW's continuity was coming to an end. It did come to an end with Lost Light and Optimus Prime, which was John Barber's comic. And then there was another. They started in 2018. There was a kind of IDW 2, and a fresh start, because by that point, 13 years had passed. So the good jumping on point and stuff. And that lasted until 2022. And that was when IDW knew that they were going to lose the license altogether, and it was going to go to Skybound, as it turned out. And IDW got the old gang back together. It got the kind of main writers over the last 50, well, by that point, 18 years, and said, let's do because I mean, God, everyone does a multiverse thing these days. It was slightly more novel. Well, God, only slightly. Back in heck, you know what? Was it only 2022 when it finished? Anyway, forget it. There was the plan was to do a kind of a big, splashy multiverse finale, and so there was going to be the return of the Lost Light crew. The story itself was going to kind of play off. It was going to be very Megatron centric, and there was going to be the Lost Light were going to be inserted into either Transformers the movie or the Unicron War from the original comic. So they were going to interact in those kind of famous events, and I was like reticent at first, and then they kind of said, look, we kind of want to use the Lost Light anyway, so and I said, well, I would like to write it then. And then it was as evidently never happened in the end for various reasons. It was called, oh God, what was it called? I want to say it's not Collision. Is it Collision Course? Collision Point? This is terrible. This is my degrading brain. Anyway, it didn't happen. And when they said, oh, it's not going to happen anymore, I felt a sense of relief, because I thought, you know what, I'm pleased that I don't have to, I like those characters having their adventures off screen, off page, whatever. And fun fact, when the original version of that very last issue, 25 of Lost Light, rather than having the words at the very end, they were just going to have the words over to you, because the idea was, fanfic authors of the world unite. They're yours to play with now. You decide what they do next. Which is what happened to me back in the early 90s. And Eugenesis, and I got to tell my own stories, and it was time for a new generation of fans to tell their own stories about Lost Light. So in answer to your question, they do everything in every possible universe, in every combination, thanks to fans.
Probably futzing around this universe somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, in the yes, I suppose, yeah, because the universe that they're in isn't too dissimilar from ours. You'll know as a reader that Community exists in there, and other sitcoms. So it's kind of it's a right angle from our own.
Yeah, it's nice. I like how you ended it. I thought it was, as someone who followed along, for
Yeah,
what did you say? It would have been like 5 years since I
yeah,
started
yeah.
reading it, and I would spend like hours just, I don't think anyone else at the library ever had a chance to check out those books because I always had them out. I would reread them, for hours and hours and hours, poring over every little detail and trying to figure out, what does this mean? What's the foreshadowing?
That was always a big thing for me, was giving readers their money's worth.
Well,
Um,
I certainly got my money's worth because I really just enjoyed those. It's still to this day my favorite comic of all time.
yeah, well, thank you very much. That's unexpected, but it's very appreciated.
Mhm.
I was just thinking, actually, there's me having a poke at Stephen Moffat before, and saying about his kind of pathological fear of writing a mundane sentence. I can sympathise to an extent in that, and I'd always worry about like decompressed storytelling. I grew up in a world where, well, I don't know about these days, but in the 2010s in particular, and the late noughties, there were so many, 6-part miniseries or 6-part story arcs that could have been compressed into 2 issues. And
Yeah.
I'm not against that reflexively, because there is definitely a role for space and a different kind of pace in comics. Of course there is. But all too often, from my perspective, you were just stretching a story. You were stretching a 2-issue story over 6 issues, and you'd sit down and you read the comic in 4 minutes. So I wanted to go back to the comics of my youth, where particularly British comics, where things were packed in.
Yeah, when I did the outline for Siblings originally, Siblings of Steel, it was like 50 issues long, and I was like, "This is
Yeah.
awesome. I'm gonna make a Lost Light of my own. I'm gonna." And then I worked on it for a few years, and I was like, I don't want to spend the next 20 years of my life on this story
Yeah.
that I love. It's a delight to tell, but I was able to condense it down quite a bit. And then I condensed it too far, and I was like, "This isn't fun anymore." And then I re-uncondensed
That's interesting.
to a more manageable size.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, like a concertina, finding the right balance. Yeah.
You know what I would like to ask is, what would you do if a Paramount called you and said, "James, gosh darn it, we just like that little comic you did. We thought it was cute. How'd you like to just write the Transformers cinematic universe?" What
Well,
would
I would have to. Yeah, I mean, that would not be a difficult response from me. I wouldn't need time to think about it. That sounds like great fun. Okay, I'll hop on a plane and we'll get going.
they're
If
like,
only because, if
yeah,
only
go on,
because
go
every yeah, if only because every single facet of every well-established IP is kind of, as I said earlier, kind of strip mined for content. That I'm sure, maybe somewhere eventually, elements of Modern Media I might bleed into some other media. I don't know. I mean, Tarn has found he's appeared um
animation.
in Cyberverse and Earthspark. There's a few references. Well, there's a reference to the Spark Flower in Earthspark. So I mean, it's the nature of Transformers. I'm not ascribing anything special to me. It's just, it cross pollinates, and myself included, all writers, look to what's gone before and think, I'll riff on that or borrow that or whatever. So as you said earlier, there's kind of nearly a decade's worth of Transformers comics, from Last Under the Wreckers through to Lost Light, and there was a lot of world building in there. I went out of my way, hopefully more successfully than not, but I went out of my way to kind of add layers to the mythos and introduce new ideas. And so if there's a life beyond More Than Meets the Eye and Lost Light, it's hopefully in those ideas, kind of finding root in other iterations of Transformers.
That's really cool. Yeah. What do you think about the movies? What did you think about the newest one? I liked it a lot.
I like I liked it well enough. I think Bumblebee. I like Bumblebee, and I like the first one. The second, third, fourth. I haven't seen the fourth and fifth actually. I like the Bumblebee one because not only was it, it's. I just liked the feel of it. I like the vibe. I like the fact it was set in the 80s. It was very, there we go again, character driven. I like the scale of it, and I liked that there was Smith's references in it. So that was, all my favorite things coming together in one. And Rise of the Beasts, I liked it well enough. I think I was in a minority in that lots of people I know really liked it, and good, and that should be a rule for everybody. Now, I don't get it when people get pissed off because other people like stuff. It's like, well, it's not causing you any harm, is it? So anyway, yeah, there were parts of it which were great, and the trouble is now I'm trying to expand on that critique, and I can't latch onto anything which I loved or hated about it, which probably says it
Yeah.
tells its own story, doesn't it? Really?
Yeah. I think what it was is it like I was really worried because Bumblebee was so good, and then there was like 2 years where they just didn't say anything, right? Like
Yeah,
there
yeah,
was no news. And I was like, well, it didn't make as much, but I hope, they're gonna like continue with this and not just go back to the Michael Bay stuff. And I think they found a good balance because I think what a lot of people wanted was more of that, big action, dynamic set pieces, all that stuff. But people
yeah,
really responded to how character driven Bumblebee was.
yeah,
Um, and I think they found a pretty good marriage of that in Rise of the Beasts. I I think it came together as a I really liked the characters.
yeah.
I thought they did a really good job, but could have I think it suffered from having too many cooks in the kitchen. That's just my
Yeah,
guess.
yeah. I suppose it was trying to do a lot of things, wasn't it? And I think the kind of almost existential question for the producers of those movies, and I use that term in the broad sense, is how do you tell, what story can you tell in a Transformers movie that doesn't feel sort of very MacGuffin-y? When you need to have huge stakes. It's usually got to be a sort of world-threatening event, and by their nature, I say by their nature, they are supposed to go into disguise, but generally speaking, they're larger than life. These giant robots. How can we have them interacting in our world in a sort of compelling way, which doesn't involve them chasing artifact X? So
Yeah.
that's why actually I think Transformers One. I'm really interested to see how they what story they tell there. I mean, I know the
Yeah.
broad out, but that isn't that's Transformers in their own environment. So
It's
you
gonna be
could,
exciting.
yeah. I'm looking. I'll be there for that for sure. And
There's
I'm very pleased that the cinematic franchise rolls on, because it's kind of like tent poles for the franchise overall.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm glad they just announced, we are still doing 8 and 9 or, Rise of the Beasts 2 and 3.
yeah,
Because I feel like, now, like, yes, the last one, did just okay box office wise, but when you don't release a movie for 5 years, I think people tend to forget about it a bit, So hopefully
yeah,
having now just one after another they'll be able to build up some momentum with just some really solid movies.
yeah, absolutely. There's something to be said. I mean, the Doctor Who experience is probably quite useful. I mean, we talked before about Russell T Davies coming back, and he has very deliberately, almost ruthlessly, kind of recalibrated it for a mainstream audience again. Now he's thinking, well, I need to get casuals back, I need to get casual fans and lapsed fans back, and it's not a bad discipline to have. And with any long running kind of franchise, you've always got to get the next generation of kids. You want kids in playgrounds to be talking about Transformers movies again. So yeah,
Yeah. I think also they shouldn't be afraid to do like a Bumblebee every now and then. Just I would
yeah,
like if, they sat down and said, "Well, here's our 5-year plan, right?
yeah,
And we have like Transformers, the big Rise of the Beasts, everything comes together, climactic movie, and that you could have like three of those, right? And that could be your main
yeah,
trilogy, like Avengers, and then just do a few little weird one-offs, right? Like do a Bumblebee or do a like Ultra Magnus, and it's a 6 episode series on Paramount Plus that is like him hunting down a criminal, like a completely different genre.
Yeah,
And it could be
definitely.
on Earth, it could be in space, just something weird that like then sets up, let's steal from IDW Scorponok, right? And then
Yeah,
Scorponok is the big villain of Transformers 2, Electric Boogaloo. And I don't think it would be hard, but I feel like it would be because there's so much money on the line, and I understand as like, a Paramount executive, right? You would be a little bit nervous to
yeah,
take such a weird risk, and a lot of them feel like they have to get involved, right, to not, to make sure they're not wasting money and stuff, and then it ends up with like 7 different main writers and all these things, and
yeah. It gets overwritten, over engineered. I think also obviously it's expensive. Properly rendered, convincingly rendered CGI
yeah,
robots aren't cheap. But and also, you don't, you like to think that audiences haven't been conditioned into expecting, always expecting like a threat to the unit, threat to the universe, threat to the world. If we could move away from the militaristic aspect of it, if we were to do kind of TV shows, you need
yeah.
to say re-educate. That sounds sinister. You need to persuade the audience that actually smaller scale, character-driven stuff is viable and is engaging and is worth watching. And maybe then, from a cost perspective, it's easier to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, because like it doesn't have, you could do, it doesn't have to be in like if you did like Ultra Magnus or whatever, it doesn't have to be like the first scene could be in space, right? But then he gets to Earth, and you could
Yeah,
just do it like maybe set it in the Middle East or in like Japan, or do something interesting, right? Make it multi. I like it when
yeah,
the movies get, interesting and multicultural, and they, you have different interesting protagonists. I thought Rise of the Beasts was really cool because you get to see some like different perspectives and
yeah.
different, colors of people, and like they go to Peru, and I'm like, how many movies take place in Peru that aren't made
Yeah.
in Peru?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, we know that it won't be allowed to die. They'll quite rightly they'll find new ways to produce more stuff, and then and also because it's not quite as I can't quite be glib and say, oh, that there's room for failure, but it is so valuable a franchise, and if there's a misstep or something doesn't quite work out, well, let's hope they'll learn from it and they'll do something different, but not kind of panic and sort of okay rush back to the tried and tested stuff, because then you get kind of it can get kind of Star Warsy there, where
Yeah,
anticipate what fans think they want. Yeah,
very proud of them for not, the movie didn't make $10 billion, so they just scrapped the whole idea.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's exciting times.
Yeah, it is. It is. I also just wanted to say I really like Earthspark. I mean, that show is really
Uh,
good.
yeah, no, it's and that well, that's a good example of it's familiar but different. It is
Mm.
it's in fact it ticks a lot of the boxes that we were referencing before. It's designed to bring in new fans. It's a good entry level show. It's got a lot of heart. Yeah, I think it's almost universally loved, and rightly so. Yeah, double thumbs up for Spark.
Yeah, it's just delightful. I don't know. I thought I was kind of shocked by like how well the Terrans are characterized,
Yeah, I
because
think
yeah.
I, May Cat is attached to it anymore, but I know she's written some fantastic. Obviously, Nick Roach, my partner in crime, is responsible for many of the designs, so it
Yeah.
looks amazing.
Did you say the
Um,
name of the first person again? I didn't quite catch.
May Cat, Maecatt.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I know she's at least partly responsible for some of the Terran characterization
Yeah.
and the human characters too.
It
Yeah,
is seriously hard to, just introduce a bunch of new characters and be like, all right, we know you like these old characters, but we're gonna like just focus on these new characters. That's
yeah,
really hard to do and get people to connect to them. And I feel like I really love all those characters.
yeah.
I really
And
like hashtag because she's written well, but also because she has the same voice actor as Artemis from Young Justice.
okay, but I mean, this is what we're talking about. Sorry, you've got to be able to bring in new characters. Otherwise, you'd just be reheating Bumblebee and G1 forever.
Yeah.
And I like Bumblebee and I like G1. But one of the best things about Transformers to me And one of the reasons why it's a juggernaut franchise is because it's expansive. It is there's literally a universe of characters and places and situations. So you can keep on mining it.
Yeah. But I think the true future of Transformers is a live action, big budget CGI bots. Think like Alvin and the Chipmunks, but it's bots.
See, I was trying to read your expression then, because you know what, weirder things have happened,
I
but no,
did think that show was cute though.
well, this is it. I mean, I'm glad I'm alive when you can get bots at one end, Rise of the Beasts at the other, and whatever. There's room for it all. And if you don't like, and I don't know if there's anybody that loves it, all of them, but if you don't like this, well, there'll be something else out there that you enjoy.
Yeah. I This is like a pipe dream. I hope they do a Transformers Sonic movie crossover.
Oh yeah,
I like the Sonic movies. I like Transformers, the movies, and they're both by Paramount, right? So I'm like, yeah, let's do it.
yeah.
Come on,
I
let's
mean,
do
they
it.
they love smashing IPs together, don't they, these
Yeah,
days?
and
So
Sonic's whole thing is smashing evil robots. So
there you
I
go,
just feel
right?
like that's a no-brainer. You have Optimus, he's like, freedom is the right of all sentient beings. And Sonic's like, and chili dogs.
Well, there you go. That's your next project. Get that.
Oh yeah.
Not.
Hope you're ready for some unsolicited solicitations, Paramount. I'm gonna have you vouch for me though. I'm gonna have you,
Oh yeah.
pull your considerable weight to get me a meeting with the head.
Use all my mighty clout to get you a meeting next week. No problem.
Yeah. So now we're in jail. Yeah. Well, this has been delightful. I'd love to have you back on the show again.
Well, yeah, no, it's been really good fun, Callum. Thank you very much. And if when you think I've got something worth talking about, I'm happy to come back. And yeah, no problem. Maybe I can come back and talk to you when the book's ready to go. I'll talk to you about the
Yeah.
fandom.
Sorry, what?
When the book next year is ready to go, looking at the fall and rise of Transformers and the role that fans and fanzines had in keeping it going. I can talk to you about that perhaps.
Yeah, that sounds really fun. And I like to do, the first episode that I have a guest on as like the introduction episode. It's the who is this character? Oh, this is their whole thing, and like so my listeners know who you are, and then listener fans of yours come on and they know who
Mm.
I am. Then this, second, third guest appearance, right? We could just do dumb, weird, minute detail. We could spend a whole episode being like, so should Rodimus have a hairstyle? No. We could be like character dialogue or
Yeah,
fanzine and writing your own fan fiction, right? There's like literally infinite possibilities to talk about
it's
comics.
true.
So I'm definitely looking forward to having some guests back on.
Oh, good stuff. Well, like I say, it's been a pleasure, and I hope listeners got something out of it. But good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you as well. Take care, man.
Thank you.
Take
Till
care.
next time.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please remember to subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell to be notified of my future uploads. You can also leave a like and comment below to let me know what you think of this video. And if you're a fan of my comic, Siblings of Steel, you can read it on my website, Webtoon, and Instagram. All the links are in the description below. If you want to support me and get access to exclusive content and early access to my videos, consider becoming a member of my Patreon community. Once again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.